Well, last week Sony had their state of play, and we'll recap that really quick. We did a live reaction to it though, so I'm not going to go too deep. And Phil Spencer did an interview with Xbox Era, and there's a few interesting bits from that we got to talk about. Let's jump into the game news. Welcome in, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Let's kick things off with Nintendo will discontinue My Nintendo Gold Points in March 2025. This is on Insider Gaming. So Nintendo Gold was something you could redeem when you bought games. It could give you discounts on existing games from the eShop. And it looks like Nintendo is doing a bunch of revamping behind the scenes ahead of the Switch 2. And they're just starting by discontinuing the gold that you would earn from buying games either direct from the eShop or redeeming them from your physical Switch game cards. So let's read. Nintendo released a notice today announcing the discontinuation of My Nintendo Gold points. Though the My Nintendo through the My Nintendo Reward program, players could earn gold points when purchasing digital Nintendo Switch games or DLC. The earned points could be used towards rewards and discounts on the My Nintendo Store and Nintendo eShop. However, after March 25th, 2025, at 1:30, who knows the time zone, or AM or PM, gold points will no longer be awarded on eligible purchases. Fortunately, players can use the gold points they have already earned for longer, as they are valid for 12 months after receipt. Moreover, there are some cases where gold points may be awarded after the discontinuation date. Check them out below. Players will earn gold points if they pre-order a downloadable product before the end of the bonus period. Gold points can be earned if players purchase a packaged version of software released before the expiration. Also, suppose players purchase Nintendo Switch OLED model, white customized, Nintendo Switch customization, or Nintendo Switch Lite, yellow, turquoise, gray, coral blue from the My Nintendo store before the reward expiration date and time. In that case, they will be able to earn gold points after the shipping date. Check out more details about earning gold points after the discontinuation date here. In other news, okay, that's like a different article. But anyway, so why would they discontinue this? Well, it looks like they're revamping the eShop. Hopefully, it will be cleaner, easier to navigate, less shovelware. But I also feel like people didn't really take advantage of this unless you buy like every single first party Nintendo game that comes out, in which case you probably had a ton of gold points that actually helped you. I know personally, I always forgot to redeem them and they've expired because I only had like a couple dollars here and there in discounts, which I mean, it's more than zero, but I don't know. The platinum points or whatever were way more useful because you can get like the free merch, like the Metroid pins or the keychains and the fun stuff that you could get from the Nintendo reward shop or whatever, and you just pay shipping. So I just think they're doing away with something people really weren't taking advantage of. But it remains to be seen. Maybe something else better is coming. Maybe they'll have Nintendo Super Gold. I don't know. I don't know what they would call it. It'd probably be some weird name though. Anyway, let's move on. I thought this was weird. Final Fantasy iOS game shuts down over unfixable bug. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles has already been removed from the App Store. So this is on The Verge. Jay Peters wrote, Square Enix has shut down the iOS version of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles and removed it from the App Store following an unfixable bug that blocked people from accessing content they had paid for. The issue is due to changes made to the in-app purchases model, Square Enix says in a post. Further investigation revealed that we are unable to completely fix the bug and implement the new changes, making it unlikely to resume service for the game. Square Enix says it started receiving reports on January 24th about the issue, which extends to the full paid version of the game. The company says that if you made in-app purchases in January 2024 or later, you're eligible to request a refund by contacting Apple support. Weird. Square Enix says that Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles will continue to be supported on other platforms. The game is also available on Android, PlayStation, and Switch. It's just wild to think about having a game that you pay for, it's supported everywhere but iOS. Like iOS used to be like the mobile app game platform because it's the easiest to reach the most people in the US with, right? The market share is much wider. But now An unfixable bug? Like, that's weird to me. Like, not even Apple support could make sense of it. Like, I don't know. I find that very odd. Kind of feels like that cough drop died. How does this even happen? You know, like, how do you get to a point where, hey, we can't fix the bug, we're just pulling the game completely? I would guess the player numbers were low enough that they were like, look, acceptable losses, right? That's like the only way that makes sense to me. But wild to think, like, hey, if you enjoyed this game on iOS, not anymore. All right, let's move on. State of Play 2025, all announcements and trailers. We're not going to watch the trailers. We'll just kind of speed through the announcements. I did a live reaction to this, so you guys can go watch that. Or you've probably already watched the State of Play. But if you didn't, excuse me. If you didn't, Borderlands 4 got a launch date. It's coming out September 23rd. Darwin's Paradox, puzzle platformer releasing sometime this year. Looked kind of fun. Dave the Diver is getting a crossover DLC, Ichiban's Holiday, from Like a Dragon, which is cool. Days Gone Remastered. If you like zombie shooter survival games, this game is getting a remaster. This one looked cool. Digimon Story. Time Stranger was a fun trailer. Directive 8020, a Dark Pictures game. This was interesting. Dreams of Another. Also interesting. It's a shooter, but the shooting mechanics builds up the world instead of tearing it down. That's going to be fun. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. If you like FNAF games, there you go. Hell Is Us. This looked weird. Liza P. Overture. Speaking of weird games, Liza P. got a DLC. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Looks like a silly, fun time. Lost Soul Aside. This one looked neat. Trailer was good. Metal Eden. I had no idea what was going on in that trailer, but again, looked pretty cool. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater got a release date of August 28th this year, so it looks good. Mind's Eye was interesting. Monster Hunter Wilds got another trailer. Looks awesome. Onimusha Way of the Sword looks cool. And Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny got shown again. I thought we knew this was coming, or this re-release was coming. I don't know. They talked a little about PlayStation Plus. And then we got a trailer, like the surprise One More Thing trailer was Saros from Housemarque, who made Returnal. Looks pretty neat. Oh, the Shinobi Art of Vengeance game looked cool too. I forgot this trailer was there. Sonic Racing Crossworlds, which is actually like my favorite trailer because these games are always fun and it was really cool looking. Split Fiction. This one also looked cool. This is a good game from the people that made I've already forgot the name of the game. Oh well. Moving on. Oh, It Takes Two. There it is. People that made It Takes Two's next game. It looks really good. Splitgate 2, which I had completely forgotten about. Stellar Blade got another DLC. Midnight Walk looked weird. Tides of Annihilation also looked weird. Warriors Abyss looked kind of cool, but weird. The WWE 2K25 game, I don't even know. I have been so out of the wrestling like sphere for so long, but this looked interesting. It looked like they built like a Fortnite style island to hang out in, you know. So there's that. But that was the State of Play summed up really fast. If you hadn't seen it, I would go watch it. The trailers were pretty decent. It was all right. It was a solid B plus presentation. Anyway, let's move on to our next one. PS5 shipments top 75 million, which is great. If you are tracking sales numbers or invested in Sony stock. 9.5 million units shipped during the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024. So PS5 shipped 75 million units worldwide. Announced that its financial results for the 3 months ending at the end of last year. I just thought it was neat because the PS4 sales numbers, I think PS5 is approaching or has surpassed. I don't remember which one it is. But, good on Sony. Interesting numbers there. But speaking of PlayStation, Microsoft has more games slated for PS5 this year than Sony so far. After the February 25 State of Play, Sony's output of first-party games scheduled for 2025 appears light, writes Chris Compendio over on GameSpot. I have to remember what website we were on. Microsoft cross-platform release strategy puts the company in a unique position this year. As it currently stands, there are more Xbox first-party games than Sony titles confirmed for a PlayStation release in 2025. February 25 State of Play live stream on Wednesday contained announcements for several games, but the presentation showcased very few first-party PlayStation games, instead highlighting many third-party titles like Monster Hunter Wilds, Borderlands 4. The only notable Sony-published PS5 titles shown were Days Gone, re-release, Lost Soul Aside, and Housemarque Saros, which is scheduled for 2026. That's true. That's not even coming out this year. That's next year. For those keeping track, as Anders pointed out by Eurogamer, Sony's PS5 games confirmed for 2025 are MLB The Show, Days Gone Remastered, and Lost Soul Aside, which also releases, MLB The Show also releases for Xbox and Switch. Ghosts of Yotei and Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Release windows for Marvel's Wolverine, Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, and Marathon from Bungie have yet to be confirmed, which is another thing to consider. We know these games are coming at some point, but is it this year? Conversely, Microsoft has Forza Horizon 5, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Doom the Dark Ages, Age of Empires 2, Age of Mythology, The Outer Worlds 2, and Ninja Gaiden 4 confirmed for PS5 this year. That's 7 PS5 games from Microsoft, not even including the inevitable next Call of Duty game compared to Sony's own 5 titles. With solid 2025 release windows, it's a bizarre future for console owners dedicated to one brand over the other, but a future we'll all have to get used to as more Xbox properties potentially migrate to PlayStation. Of course, the balance between the two competitors in this year's release schedule could shift as Sony announces more dates for its own titles. Ultimately, this ironic twist may not matter to Sony, which touted successful hardware sales numbers from its most recent quarter, as we covered in the previous topic there. So, yeah, it's weird because Microsoft's whole strategy is basically PlayStation is an Xbox, but it's still a PlayStation. Which brings us to right into our next thing, because this is kind of like the preface for the next couple of topics. But Microsoft having so many publishers under its belt and having bought Activision, it has to commit to supporting third parties. Otherwise, they would be a monopoly. Like that, I think that's what it comes down to. Plus, nobody's buying the Xboxes. Games have to go somewhere. The solution then is Phil Spencer's own quotes, starting with Game Pass. Phil Spencer says Xbox isn't trying to funnel players away from game ownership. So, interview with Phil Spencer on Xbox Era. This little snippet gets covered by VGC. The next two topics are from VGC. But Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer has said that Microsoft isn't trying to force players into Game Pass, cloud, or any one way to experience games. For the past few years, Microsoft has placed a significant focus on Game Pass, its subscription service. We all know what Game Pass is. While the service has been heralded for its value, some have taken issue in Microsoft's focus on Game Pass, as players don't own any of the games they receive, raising preservation concerns, which, I mean, that's how subscriptions work. In a new interview with Xbox Era, Microsoft's gaming CEO acknowledged players who wish to maintain large libraries of owned games and claimed that Microsoft isn't attempting to funnel players away from ownership and towards subscriptions. I think we've shown respect for people's libraries over the generations with back compat and play anywhere, and I want to continue to do that, Spencer told Xbox Era. He said, you can buy every game that's in Game Pass. We're not trying to funnel everybody into one business model. Play the games you want to play. Play the games the way you want to play them. Sorry. We obviously have to run a good business, so we'll have our pricing and everything that we do. But I want to make as many options as possible for the games that we have, Spencer continued. One of Game Pass's biggest selling points comes in the wake of Microsoft publishing its biggest titles on PS5. For example, Doom the Dark Ages will release on both Xbox and PS5, but on PS5 it'll be $70. However, on Xbox and PC, you can play it on Game Pass, which is kind of the argument. If you're not buying a PlayStation, Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're not buying a PlayStation, you're gonna play it on Xbox or PC if you're playing it at all. And you could go the Game Pass route and just subscribe. Or if you have a PlayStation, you can just buy the game full price. And also, I could see them maybe including games in like PlayStation Plus at some point, but that would have to be like negotiated, like anything else. All right, he goes on to say it's why us embracing Windows and embracing cloud has allowed us to grow. One of our fastest growing regions for us right now is Asia, and it's not because we're selling more consoles in Asia, but through cloud and PC. We're finding more users year over year than in any other place. The fastest kind of platform is cloud. That's the thing that's growing the fastest year over year. And those players, like you were talking about, like the radio host, I don't know what that means, but anyway, we were never going to catch that person with our console, so let's find them in a way that works, and it's better for Indiana Jones, it's better for Xbox. But yeah, like this has kind of been the strategy for Microsoft, right? This has been the play. They have so many publishers under their belt, they're not going to close them all down, although they could. It would really suck if they did, but they could, and instead they've got to make that Activision money back, right? So that means selling games everywhere. That means pushing cloud and Game Pass and doing everything they can to get you into the Xbox ecosystem one way or another. So that really shouldn't surprise anyone. But we also have this wonderful snippet. I don't know what to make of this. Actually, I do know what to make of this. But in that same interview, he is quoted, "I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore." Phil Spencer explains Xbox's PS5 release strategy. Microsoft Gaming CEO says he'd still prefer to sell games on Xbox, won't ignore other user bases. Well, that's interesting, but that goes back to Microsoft releasing more games on PS5 than Sony's releasing on PS5 this year. So, Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer shed some more light on the company's decision to release more Xbox games on PS5. In his interview, Spencer was asked about comments he made during an FTC hearing in 2023, in which he claimed that every time an Xbox-owned studio sold a game on PS5 on the PS5 store, Sony's 30% cut was being used towards deals to block other third-party games from coming to Xbox. Now that Xbox is releasing numerous games on PS5, Spencer was asked if he was now less focused on Sony's 30% cut and more focused on the 70% cut Xbox takes on each of its games sold on PS5. Spencer replied that this was the case and that trying to get PS5 owners to move to Xbox instead of just selling games directly to them was no longer a viable strategy. It's maybe not what I was going to say on Stand at the time, but yeah, I would love to make all the money for all the games that we ship right now. Obviously, we make more on our own platform. It's one of the reasons that investing in our own platform is important. But there are people, there are people, whether it's their libraries or on PlayStation or Nintendo, whether it's that they like the controller better, they just like the games that are there. And I don't want to then look at that and say, well, there's no way that we should be able to build a business there, find fans of our franchises there. I'm not trying to move them all. I don't understand that. I guess I see like the spirit of what he's saying. The quote's just weird. So I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore. We're also invested in where our games are. Let's just allow more people to play. And yes, the 70% that we make on games on other platforms is helpful to us to being able to build great portfolios like we showed at Developer Direct. And I hope this will continue to show through the rest of the year. So yeah, that 70% is better than 0%, right? That's what it comes down to. And there's a lot of PlayStations out there, as we talked about earlier. There's, several million for people to tap into if you release your game on PlayStation. So Microsoft putting their games on PlayStation is better than not putting their games on PlayStation. Which, if you have been like in the, I don't know, if you've been in a camp that's like, I only buy one piece of plastic, that's on you, bro. Now you can just buy one piece of plastic and you'll get every game or most of the games, which is PC or PS5 at this point, right? The only other thing you might need is a Nintendo console, because Lord knows they're not going to go multi-platform anytime soon. Elsewhere in the interview, Spencer was asked why Xbox's recent Developer Direct showed PlayStation logos for the games it was showing, rather than using the strategy Nintendo and PlayStation usually implement for their presentations, where they only show their logos during game announcements and is later revealed they're coming to other systems too. Spencer replied that he feels transparency is important and that if one of the games it features in a developer direct is coming to another platform, it won't hide that fact in an attempt to suggest Xbox is the only option. I just want to be transparent with people, Spencer replied. If we're shipping on Switch, we're going to put that. If we're shipping on PlayStation, if we're on Steam, people should know the storefronts where they can get our games. It's all there. I don't know how much longer Microsoft is really going to support releasing Xbox hardware if they're not moving units. But I think the Xbox function will change from being pure gaming console to maybe that media set-top box that they were trying to push with the end of the 360's lifespan and back in the beginning of the Xbox One, where it could do a bunch of things, but everybody just wanted game machines. Now they're going to really need to sell something that can do cloud really well, play older games really well, and maybe run some newer games, but mostly funnel people to Game Pass and cloud gaming. And for console people, you'd get PlayStation diehards. Or PC. Really, PC is their best market. And he's, I'm not going to say he's wrong about one thing or another, but he's definitely right about cloud. The cloud is so accessible. Like, you just start an app. That's why there's the fact that there's not a Game Pass tier just for cloud is so weird to me. Why wouldn't they try to push people to the cloud service only? Get that Game Pass money, $7 a month, I don't know, how much is GeForce Now per month, right? They're doing well. They can't keep up with demand. They had to turn off memberships. Capitalize on that, Microsoft. Make them come to your platform because you have the space for them, Start throwing PC games onto xCloud. That seems to be the best solution, if there's any solution. Anyway, let's move on. All right, this is our last story. Kind of a quick one. I don't know. Is it 23 minutes? Who knows? All right. Console gaming. This is from Twisted Voxel. Console gaming market is seeing fewer young buyers as the demographic continues to age, claims NPD analyst. The console gaming market is seeing fewer younger buyers in the U.S. And can I make this page any smaller? All right. The existing demographic continues to get older, claims an NPD analyst. Matt Piscatella, executive director and video game industry analyst at Circana, took to Blue Sky to share that the high-income households are becoming a bigger part of the U.S. console hardware market, as 49% of the country's game console buyers during the fourth quarter of 2024 has a household income of at least $100,000 per year. He added that this is a record high, beating the 48% seen during the fourth quarter of 2021. First quarter of 2020, this group accounted for only 29%. That's a lot of numbers. I don't know what we're talking about. Piscatella further revealed that the demographic aged 45 and above accounted for 45% of purchasers in the U.S. console market during the fourth quarter of 24, which is a record high. Meanwhile, those below the age of 45 made up a record low of 55% of console purchasers in the quarter. During the first quarter of 2020, this group accounted for 69% of the game console market purchases, with 31% being 45 or above demographic. NPD analysts noted console buyers are getting old, but they also appear to be making more money, though the data doesn't indicate which demographic these console purchases are being made for. Are those belonging to the age group of 45 and above buying consoles for themselves or their children? It's likely to be both, but further context to this data would offer greater insight. It's no secret GTA Online, Call of Duty, Fortnite, and sports titles are extremely popular with younger gaming audiences. During a recent investor presentation, Rockstar Games parent company Take-Two Interactive revealed that mobile platforms were responsible for 52% of its revenue in fiscal year 24. Consoles contributed towards 40%, while PC and other platforms made up for just 8% of the company's annual earnings. The stats indicate a vast majority of engagement in GTA Online is still very much on consoles. Similarly, it was reported 64% of consumer spending on Microsoft titles during December 24 was on PlayStation consoles alone, with Call of Duty playing a major role. Consoles accounted for 67% of EA's earnings during its recent financial quarter, driven by sports titles. None of that's really surprising. This last paragraph. But I think the obvious answer here is one, hybrid handheld form factors are are growing, so people are going to be buying those, but that would just count as a PC sale. Tablets are cheap and last longer than, or stay, they're a lot cheaper and last longer than, say, like an Xbox, or a PlayStation, and they travel. So I think the handheld PC market is going to really take off in that regard. But I also think people just are like, here, have my tablet or my phone. And that's where kids are getting a lot of gaming from. And that's what gaming is to them. And if you're not, so like in my house, and probably in your own house, you grew up playing video games, you're still playing video games. You buy consoles because that's where the video games are. That's gonna be like the thing until there's not a console anymore. However, in almost everywhere else, you're gonna get more people checking out cloud gaming or checking out, I don't know what else. It's gonna be mostly cloud and mobile, probably. I think at the end of the day, those are the platforms that really are gonna see the most growth. Everybody that has a cloud service, everybody that pushes even the low tier, stupid ad supported mobile games are going to continue to grow user base and numbers and stuff because it's so much more accessible. Everybody has a phone with an app store now. Everybody's got at least one tablet, I would assume. And I say everybody, most people. Instead of buying a console, it's gonna be, here, have the iPad. So all those iPad kids are playing games. It's a sad reality, but we knew console sales were rough. Not necessarily bad, but just lower than they have been, and that's why the Switch catching up to and surpassing, what did it pass up the PlayStation 2 recently? Anyway, the Switch sales numbers were very exciting because it's like, oh look, a console sold really, really well in its 7-year lifespan, right? But anyway, that's where I'll leave it. That's where we're gonna call it. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you being here. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think of the video. And if you're watching on Twitch, we're going to go play video games now. See ya.